What's up guys, it's Chris Majestic, and it's been about 7 years since I did my security camera guide back in 2017, and quite a bit has changed since I did that video, and I've gone through a bunch of outdoor security camera setups over the years, so I figured I'd share my experience with you guys to help you get started if you're interested in security cameras. So in this video, I'm going to go over the different camera form factors, then I'll talk about the different camera types including wired cameras, wireless cameras, battery operated, and solar powered. First, I want to start with bullet cameras. Bullet cameras are the most common outdoor camera form factor. They can mount to a wall or a ceiling, and they're usually somewhere between 5 and 12 inches long depending on their focal length and optics. They can have a fixed focal length, meaning they don't zoom, or they can have an optical zoom allowing them to zoom in without a significant drop in image quality. They're also the most conspicuous camera type, and in some cases their existence alone can potentially deter someone from committing a crime. The biggest cons of bullet cameras is their size compared to other cameras, and they have the lowest durability with regards to vandalism. The next form factor I want to talk about is the dome camera. So dome cameras usually have a protective glass cover for the camera lens, which protects it from vandalism, and the glass also makes it difficult for people to determine where the camera is pointed. And these cameras vary in focal length, but can often have a very wide angle in an effort to observe the largest area possible. Some dome cameras even have a 360-degree fisheye lens, which can cover an entire room when placed in the middle of the ceiling. The biggest downside to dome cameras is that they're harder to install and get into position if you've never installed one before. Night vision can also be a challenge for domes, as there can be reflections from the infrared lights on the glass dome, which limits visibility. The next form factor on the list is the turret camera. Turrets are often found indoors but can also be used outdoors. Their mounting system offers more flexibility, and they often have a wider viewing angle allowing you to capture objects at closer distances. Turrets are very similar to dome cameras but are often used in spaces with a lower risk of vandalism, as they lack the extra protection of a glass dome. But the lack of a glass cover allows for much better night vision capabilities and slightly easier installation while still retaining the benefits of a smaller body style. And the next form factor I want to talk about is the PTZ camera, which stands for pan, tilt, zoom. These cameras can usually pan up to 360 degrees, they can tilt up and down, and they can zoom in on a subject. PTZs can cover a very large area, especially when placed on the corner of a building or up high on a pole, as they can pan around and zoom into a specific area, covering far more than a fixed camera. PTZs can come with or without a glass dome and vary in size depending on their focal length and optics. And some modern PTZs even come with AI auto tracking, allowing them to automatically recognize and track subjects like humans, vehicles, and animals, and automatically follow the subjects without any human interaction. PTZs can even come paired with an additional wide angle or even 360-degree cameras, which can spot a subject in the blind spot of the main camera, which can help the main camera to locate and track a subject anywhere within 360 degrees. PTZs also offer some of the longest zoom ranges, allowing you to capture subjects several hundred feet away. The biggest downside to a PTZ is that they often have a limited field of view, so they can miss a subject standing directly beneath or behind it, so they're often paired with additional cameras known as spotter cams. And the last form factor I want to talk about is a newer one, which is known as the 180-degree camera. 180 cameras consist of two angled cameras and one body. The two camera feeds are stitched together to produce one ultra-wide 180-degree image. And these cameras are available in the form of a bullet, a turret, and they can even be found on some PTZ cameras as a spotter cam like we just talked about. 180 cameras are great for observing large areas such as backyards, warehouses, or other large spaces, allowing you to essentially have two cameras covering a wide area with a single data connection. And the downside to 180 cameras is that some of them have a very limited vertical field of view, which I've seen as low as 44 degrees. This means you may have difficulty observing the area directly beneath the camera, so you may need an additional camera to cover this area if you don't want a blind spot. And the ones that offer a better vertical field of view usually have a harder time identifying people at farther distances, as they have a shorter focal length. Alright, so now that we've got camera form factors out of the way, we can go over the different camera connection types. And I'll be going over 4 different connection types of cameras in this video, which includes wired cameras, wireless, battery powered, and solar powered. Alright, so first I want to start with wired cameras. Wired cameras have been around forever, and even today, wired security cameras offer the best video quality and reliability. And there are two different types of wired cameras. You have the older analog connection known as BNC, and a newer digital connection known as PoE. BNC is an older cable technology which uses a coaxial cable that breaks out into separate power and data connections on one end and requires you to use a DVR or digital video recorder, which converts the analog video into digital. For years, BNC has been the industry standard for surveillance cameras, but has quickly been replaced by PoE. PoE stands for Power over Ethernet, and this connection allows you to use a single Ethernet cable to power the camera as well as send or receive data. With a PoE camera, you have the option of using an NVR or network video recorder, which is much like a DVR, except they can be connected directly to the cameras, or they can manage the cameras on your network even if they're wireless or not directly connected to it. One major benefit of PoE cameras is that they can also be used with a basic PoE network switch. In other words, a lot of PoE cameras don't require an NVR or management system, since they can be used independently with their own built-in interface, so all they need is a basic PoE switch to power them and send or receive data. And if you do want to manage a PoE camera, you have lots of NVR options, as you can use a traditional NVR or even an old leftover computer running NVR software. So if you're looking for the latest and greatest camera options, PoE is definitely the way to go. They offer the most options, the best flexibility, and they can easily be expanded to as many cameras as you need. Now, when it comes to wired cameras, the main downside, especially with PoE cameras, is that they require professional installation, since they usually require you to crimp your own cables, and they also require a small to moderate amount of technical ability to set them up and manage them. And this leads us to our next camera type, which is Wi-Fi cameras. Considering the inconvenience with running long cables around a property and the convenience of Wi-Fi, outdoor Wi-Fi cameras have become a popular alternative. Basic outdoor Wi-Fi cameras, not to be confused with battery-powered cameras, require a power adapter to power them, even though they connect to a wireless network. This means they're not completely wireless, but installation is still easier since they can be plugged into a nearby outlet and use Wi-Fi for their data connection. Wired doorbell cameras technically fall into this category as well. This is going to allow you to use your old doorbell wires to power the doorbell camera, and it's going to use your Wi-Fi as a data connection. Wireless outdoor cameras usually offer the same features as the wired versions we just talked about, but without the need for long cables. But the biggest downside to these cameras is that it can be difficult to find a nearby location to plug them in. This means you might have to drill a hole to run the power connection into your house, or place the camera close to an outdoor outlet. Aside from that, you're also at the mercy of your Wi-Fi connection and can experience dropouts or reliability issues if your Wi-Fi isn't the greatest. Next on the list is battery-powered cameras, also known as wire-free cameras. Battery power has come a long way in recent years, and battery-operated cameras have become popular due to their convenience. Outdoor wire-free cameras have a built-in battery as well as Wi-Fi, allowing them to be placed anywhere, including places which wouldn't be easy to install a wired camera. Aside from their convenience, wire-free cameras often come with an easy-to-use phone app, which allows anyone to easily set up the camera and manage recordings and settings right from your phone. Depending on the camera, it may rely on cloud storage, it might have storage built in, it might have expandable storage like an SD card slot, or it may have a wireless base station that sits in your house and stores the recordings. And most wire-free cameras have advanced features such as person detection, two-way talk, night vision, and smart motion alerts. So doorbell cameras also fall into this category, as they usually offer some battery-operated versions. So if you're looking to get an outdoor camera and you're not technical and you're not interested in getting someone to run wires, wire-free cameras can be a great alternative, but they do have a few downsides. The first downside is motion detection. So in an effort to conserve battery life, most wire-free cameras remain in a deep sleep or standby mode, waiting for their motion sensor to be triggered. Once the motion sensor triggers, the camera wakes up and immediately starts recording. Some cameras are better at this than others, so there could be times where the first few moments of motion could be missed. On top of that, the recordings will be limited, since you won't be able to record something for several minutes straight. Another limitation is that you can't stream video from the camera for long periods, as it would drain the battery too fast. This means that even though most wire-free cameras do allow you to connect to them to see a live video feed, they can't be streamed to a server or NVR, so you'll be forced to use their phone app to view recordings or to stream the live camera to your phone for short periods. But the biggest downside to wire-free cameras is battery life. Even though most manufacturers advertise several months on battery, if you have a wire-free camera mounted in a high traffic area with lots of motion, you'll be lucky if the battery lasts even a couple of weeks. So when it comes to these cameras, you have to take the good with the bad. They're highly convenient and easy to use, but if you've missed a critical event due to a recording delay, or you grow tired of charging batteries, a wire-free camera could be more of a hassle than it's worth. And this brings us to our last category, which is in direct response to the power issue on wire-free cameras, which is solar-powered cameras. In an effort to make things even more convenient, some manufacturers offer solar-powered security cameras or separate solar panels which can be used to recharge a wire-free camera on sunny days. Solar-powered cameras provide all the same benefits of the wire-free cameras we just talked about, but reduce or in some cases completely remove the need to recharge them. Solar-powered cameras have become extremely popular over the past few years, and they're a game changer when it comes to convenience. Not only could you potentially set it up somewhere and never have to touch it again, but some solar powered cameras can even be set up in the middle of nowhere and still record locally on the camera for the recordings to be accessed later. And some even have a cellular LTE connection, so you can even access it from anywhere in the world and store the recordings in the cloud as long as it has a good connection. And the biggest downside to solar powered cameras is that they rely on direct sunlight in order to keep the camera charged. So at different times of the year and depending on your climate, you may not be getting enough sunlight, especially in the winter time, to keep the camera charged. But aside from sunlight, the solar powered cameras still have the same downsides as the other wire-free cameras. But on the plus side, they reduce the need to charge them as often, and if you're somewhere with lots of direct sunlight, you may never have to charge these cameras at all. Alright, so I know this is going to be mentioned in the comment section, so I might as well address it now. What about using cheap indoor cameras in a window? Well, this can actually work in some cases as long as you know the limitations. The first thing to do is disable the infrared lights. When placed in a window, the infrared lights from the camera will usually reflect onto the glass and back into the camera, making the camera completely useless at night. This means you'll want to make sure that you have plenty of light outside in order for the camera to see. Another limitation when mounting in a window is reflections of blinds, lights, and other objects in the house. There are a few ways to fight this, but I found one of the best ways is to find a window mount made specifically for your camera, which can significantly reduce reflections and glare. I've set up indoor cameras in apartment windows in a few places for family members, and as long as you have them angled properly and you disable the infrared lights, it's actually not a horrible option. Okay, so what does all of this mean? Well, if you want the absolute best image quality and you're a technical person, or you don't mind paying someone to install a system for you, then a wired PoE security system is the best option. It gives you the best looking image during the day or at night, and you're less likely to miss out on an event if something happens. And if you can't run wires around your property, then the next best thing is a Wi-Fi camera that uses an outlet or building wires for power. This includes floodlight cams, wired doorbell cams, or any other outdoor camera that plugs into a wall and uses Wi-Fi. And if you absolutely can't run wires at all, then you can grab a wire-free camera. But I highly recommend either buying one that has a solar panel built in or using an external solar panel to help keep the battery charged. Wire-free cameras do have a few limitations, but they can't be beat when it comes to convenience and ease of installation. And the last thing I wanted to go over in this video was night vision, but for the sake of time, I'll have to probably do a separate video on that. The main thing to keep in mind is that not all cameras are good at night vision, and most of the time a 4K or 8 megapixel camera is actually going to have inferior night vision performance compared to a lower resolution camera like 2 megapixels or 4 megapixels, since those cameras can let in more light. It's also better to buy a camera that has a larger camera sensor than to buy a camera that has a higher resolution if you plan on identifying someone in the dark. But before I get into the weeds on that topic, I'll save it for a video in the future. And I will have Amazon links to a bunch of the products that I showed in this video, including some of my favorite cameras that I've dealt with over the years. And if you found this video helpful, go ahead and make sure you mash that like button for me. As always, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.